Have you ever had to make a difficult decision when it was really hard to do the right thing? Have you had to defend yourself against an unfair accusation? How do you stand firm against pressure to compromise your principles? This week's episode delves into these questions and many more. This is Quran Conversation, the podcast for anyone who wants to unlock the meaning and healing powers of the Quran. I'm your host, Dalia Mogahed, an author, researcher, and a student of the Quran. I'll be in conversation with one of my dearest teachers, Imam Muhammad Majid, a scholar of the Quran and longtime family counselor and congregational leader. Today we're going to discuss ayahs 24 to 27 in Surah Yusuf, where the Prophet of God, alayhi salam, resists the temptation and coercion of the minister's wife and defends himself against false accusations. If you're enjoying this podcast, please review it on your podcasting platform. It helps more than you know. Quran Conversations is sponsored by Fawakih, an online learning platform for Quranic Arabic that I myself use. Start your journey in unlocking the language of the Quran. Go to fawakih.org/journey. We hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. Make sure to stay until the end to hear this week's reflection prompt. For more spiritual insights, follow me on Instagram at Dalia Mogahed. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Quran Conversations with Dalia Mogahed and my teacher, Sheikh Muhammad Majid. We are starting at ayah 24 in Surah Yusuf. Sheikh, would you like to read it or should I?
You go ahead.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد همت به وهم بها لولا أن رأى برهان ربه كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. And certainly she inclined toward him, and he would have inclined toward her were it not that he had seen the manifest evidence of his Lord. Thus it was that we might turn him away from evil and indecency. Surely he was one of our sincere servants. Imam Majid, would you like to begin your thoughts on this ayah?
Yeah, this ayah that talks about a moment of test whether a person respond to temptation or reject temptations. You know, there's something called sins of opportunities, I call them. That the person maybe find themselves in a place where somebody says, by the way, I just bought a ticket for you for the lottery. Just put it in your name because I really believe that maybe have better luck than me. And a person says, whether you take it or not, like you didn't buy it yourself, somebody bought it for you.
Right.
In this issue here, there's a very important aspect of when do you make decisions in an issue of temptation. The word hammat bihi wa hamma biha. That's the key to the ayah itself.
Yeah.
Hammat, for her, that she already planned this, and she determined to want to have him to want to seduce him, want to commit a sin with her.
So Imam Majid, before you go on, tell me what you understand. What is the meaning of hammat?
The hammat means azamat, meaning that she determined. Al-himma in Arabic means zeals, means to have this drive. This is himma. But, yeah, that's what hamma means.
Like a motivation, drive towards something.
Yes.
Himma. Okay.
Himma. And ham is worries.
Yeah.
يقولون من جعل همه هما واحدا كفاه الله سائر الهموم. Whoever met his worries, single worry, Allah take care of the rest of the worries. For it is the same roots. For hammat here, that means she becoming focused, seek, have the drive, want to do this. The وهم بها, the ulama here says, hamma here, it is the natural inclinations human being has toward the temptation. And some, Hassan al-Basri said that, one of the Mufassirin. Sheikh Abu Mansour said, hamma biha khatra, yani a thought crossed his mind. Cross his mind.
A passing thought.
Passing thought. Like, and in Islam, Allah would not judge us with passing thought. Otherwise, people become in trouble because many people have passing thought. It's called khatra, khatir, khatara bidhihnihi, yani. How sin developed? First, a passing thought, then a person capture it, then dwell on it, become an idea, then dwell on it more, become azima, a determination, then become an action. That's how by the way, bad thought and good thought, both ways, because sometimes good thought also you need to capture it, dwell on it, and develop it. Right. You know, therefore, hamma biha wa hamad. They said that if his ham, because he used the same word for both of them, if his ham was equal to hers, then Allah will not have praised him. Because Allah gave us an introduction what she did. وَقَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ. He responded to all of that. That means he has already processed this temptation by saying, I seek refuge by Allah. Either he says, my master being kind to me, or Allah being kind to me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me in a way that I don't respond to this kind of temptation. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the human aspect of it. For anyone who read this surah to say, you might have, the thought might have crossed your mind. You might have desired something, but you have stopped yourself. Have responded to it with the azima not to do it. Because if he has no feeling, then it will have been an easy thing. Right. Maybe he's not interested, he doesn't have the desire, then so, it was easy for him. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, although has crossed his mind, and yet he resisted, that is stronger. It makes Yusuf alayhi salam has more, this will, strong will, that to resist the temptation. The word ra'a burhana rabbihi, the ulama, debated what is this this burhan. The people says that the burhan is an evidence. The word burhan means an evidence, and it could be either he people said that he remember what Yaqub have told him, when he was a child. Some people said he heard a sound, a voice. Some people says this burhan is from within. Something like, this is not the right thing to do. That means he has this strong conviction of understanding what is right and wrong, and that come easy for him, that this is not acceptable. Of course, some people, Mufassirin, said that he's seen, even imagine his father telling him, don't do this. If that psychological state he was in, that he be able to reactivate the memory. One of the things that one of my sheikhs said to me, Sister Dalia, very interesting. He said to me, need to have all the time positive deposit memory. Like when you are in tahajjud, make that a memory. When you are in haram, make that a memory. He said, reactivate them in the difficult time. When about to do something wrong, says, remember the time that you were crying to Allah, and remember, or your father telling you something, or grandfather telling you something. I try to do this myself all the time, because my father a lot, to try to reactivate those brain memory. When he activated that burhan came to him, this evidence of this not the right thing to do, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this is the way that Allah took away as-su al-fahsha. They say the su here, it means betraying. The worst things to do is to betray someone. Al-fahsha is committing zina. But betraying, قال السوء الفحشاء, some ulama says السوء here is betraying, and al-fahsha is committing the the zina or the physical relationship out of marriage. إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. This is a very interesting way that this ayah in in the spiritual realm, when a person have ikhlas, sincerity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would bring this ikhlas very handy at the time that they're really in trouble. If a person really seek guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every aspect of their life with devotion and sincerity, Allah would not have them go astray. But the human aspect of this, for every young person, for everybody who listening to us and so forth to understand, you might have thought cross your mind. You might be tempted and you might want to do something. That is itself is not a problem. The problem is when execute on it, that we need all of us to have the ability to control our desires, ability to control our behavior. And Yusuf alayhi salam will put in a very difficult situation. There's a lady has more power than him, the power dynamic. Actually, she used her power by closing all the doors. She's familiar with the space and the place. And he's inferior to her in rank. And yet, he ra'a burhan rabbihi, was able to see the burhan of his Lord. Would call it a spiritual opening. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Imam Majid. You said so many important things. I wanted to draw out a couple of threads. The first thing that I thought was very important is that, as you said, it mentions وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا, right? So he had a drive toward her had he not seen the evidence, the manifest evidence of his Lord, or the sign of his Lord. And I think this part is so important because it does show, as you said, that it wasn't that he wasn't interested or he has no desire for her or for anyone. He's a normal human. He's a normal man. And exactly. She was attractive. It wasn't like this was someone that no one would look at. No, this was like an attractive woman who was of high class in this space, and she had closed all the doors. So that's the first thing that we actually have to note, is that he was being tested. It's like it wasn't a situation where he's a prophet, so he's above any thoughts toward that. And then the second piece that I thought was very important to point out is he says Burhana Rabbi, right? So Rabb is what is being called, is the Rabb is what is being elevated or prioritized, where you might think that it should be Allah, or the uluhiyya of Allah should be what is prioritized in a situation when you are tempted to do something wrong, because Allah is the authority, but Rabb is the sustainer. And so what I thought was very beautiful is that he's seeing the sign of his Lord, the one who sustains him. It wasn't just about accountability, which might be more expressed in the uluhiyya of Allah, Allah as the majestic account, the one who holds us accountable. But the idea of this is his he's calling into mind his generous favors, Allah's generous favors to him, his mercy, and that sense of how can I go against, how can I offend such a generous Lord?
Yeah.
Rather than, I don't want to be punished by a majestic God. And I think it's so beautiful because it's like a deeper type of holding one accountable, holding
MashaAllah.
oneself accountable.
Yeah.
Is to remember God's favor on you. How would you offend this Lord?
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
And especially if, you so mashallah beautifully eloquently said that even the attractions that this woman have seen and him being attractive, he's أحسن مثواي, if he referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if Allah the one who make me look good, how can I use what he has given me to do something wrong with it?
Exactly. That's ingratitude.
Yeah, yes, because so many people like really use either the power, the prestige, or the beauty to do something wrong with it.
Yeah, we call it pretty privilege.
Yeah, yes.
You get better treatment at the store and at the airport, and
yeah.
Exactly.
Therefore, he said that he would not do that, and then, and subhanallah, because of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the sincerity he has, understanding the responsibility with the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah said, لِنُصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَةَ.
Yeah, exactly.
We purified him from the su' al-fahsha.
And that's the second part. The second point I really want to emphasize is even a prophet, alayhi salam, cannot turn away from temptation alone.
Yeah, you need to help
the idea of we have to turn to Allah and ask for help.
Absolutely.
That is the only way. We on our own, we think this idea of willpower. It's like a myth.
Yes.
You need Allah to save you from falling into sin.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when we do fall into sin, or when we do, not when we fall into sin, but when we are able to resist, it's an occasion for gratitude to Allah.
Exactly.
Not a sort of like self, praise. Like, oh, look what I could do. No, you didn't do it.
Yes.
This was Allah's protection.
Absolutely. One of the things that we mentioned earlier in the story, that it seemed like Yusuf alayhi salam himself is not bragging about his look. He's not, he was worried about the test that brought to him, because every ni'mah, every favor Allah have given us, it comes with a test.
Yeah.
Whether it's knowledge, whether it's look, whether it's prestige, whether it's, whatever it may be, it comes with a test. That how can we utilize it and use it in a way that pleases to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Access to power, access to money, fame, all of that. It comes with a big test.
Yeah. Yes, it's a big test, and when you pass that test, when you're able to turn away from the problems that it brings, it's an occasion for gratitude to Allah. I'm reminded of Ibn al-Qayyim said that when he sees someone falling into sin, rather than feel superior to him, he is grateful that Allah protected him from that sin.
Yes. Knowing
that absent that, he would have fallen as well.
Yeah.
And this is how we should not look down on others who become, who have fallen into sins or different sins than we've fallen into, and not become arrogant, but while still maintaining a clear sense of right and wrong. It doesn't mean that everything's okay, or don't judge means that nothing's wrong and nothing's right. No, it just means that human being is not someone you can look down on as a human. Their sin is something you can hate. That's fine. And I think that this distinction is so important. The idea of when we restrain ourselves, it's an occasion for gratitude to Allah for protecting us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I realize in my counseling, when a person come and they said they're struggling with anything, like a temptation, something that they struggle with, I was telling them that the struggle itself is something Allah reward you for, because otherwise you would not have been in my office. You would not have been talking to me about this if you don't care about your relationship with Allah. If you care about your relationship with Allah, that's why you are here. And even if a person, fall into the sin and try to purify themselves from it, and they try to work on it, that is self, that effort Allah appreciate. People have to know that. They have to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognize and sees and knows the struggle that we go through. And that's why, as you said earlier, asking Allah for help, like Rasulullah used to say after every salah, Allahumma inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husn ibadatik. Allah, help me to remember you, help me to be grateful to you, and help me to worship in the way that you deserve to be worshipped. Because without awn of Allah, without help of Allah, we'll not be able to do it.
The final point that I wanted to discuss with you in a little bit more depth is the choice of the word mukhlis and not muhsin, because throughout the surah we're hearing, the description of Yusuf as al-muhsin, and here Allah uses a different word to describe him, which is mukhlis and ikhlas. And so we translate as a sincerity, which of course is correct. I just want to emphasize the idea that when we talk about ikhlas and someone who's mukhlis in this occasion is very, very interesting, because what it's emphasizing is that Allah alone is the center of your orbit, of your life's orbit. You have cultivated and polished your tawheed so that He is your only Lord.
Absolutely.
Right? And this idea of ikhlas is the fuel and the key to istiqamah, to being upright.
Absolutely.
You won't be swayed. You won't bow to anyone else or any other inclination if you only bow to Allah. And so it was in this moment of temptation that his ikhlas to Allah is emphasized.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. Allah ordered them to worship Allah and to be sincere in their religion, that to have no partners, no associate. And here, what is the ikhlas come from? Because the worshiping of desire.
Yes.
Because worshiping of desire is concept of shirk.
Yes.
اتخذ إله هواه. For he purified himself from worshiping his desires and then submit himself totally to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the ikhlas to Allah lead to ikhlas to human relationship. What I mean by that, if a person is sincere in the relation with Allah, he will not betray another human being.
Right.
For he is mukhlis because he have sincerity with Allah. Made Allah the center of his life, and therefore he will not betray this man, also as well. Right. For there's a ikhlas of relationship with us and Allah, between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and between us and fellow human being. Therefore he has this ikhlas in all aspects of it.
When we stand straight with strength and dignity, we can stand straight with strength and dignity in this world when we only bow to Allah.
Absolutely. يعني المفسرين الذين المخلصين الذين أخلصهم الله لطاعته. Allah made them there only for His obedience, and Yusuf alayhi salam one of those.
I was actually remembering when I was going through this ayah, your tafsir of Surah Al-Ikhlas, right? The one we all know as children even. And or the first surah you learn when you embrace Islam.
That's
and the idea and actually really it becomes very relevant in this occasion. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. There's only this. Allah is singular, one, and then Allahu Samad, the only refuge.
Yes.
Because what she was implying to him is, I am your only refuge.
Exactly.
And he was responding with the truth, no. Allah's my only refuge. And I'm not going to surrender to your advances.
Yeah, subhanAllah. One of my, reminding me, subhanAllah, every time that you mentioned those amazing points, I've been reminded of other things that I learned in my, when I was a student with my sheikh. And he said something very interesting, Tafsir al-Ishari, they call the figurative tafsir. He said to me, when she closed the doors of the walls, the doors of hope for him and forgiveness was open. She closed the physical doors, but his door with Allah never been closed.
Subhanallah.
And therefore he has access to Allah, and he sees what Allah wants from him. Therefore she couldn't close those doors in his heart, but she closed the physical doors.
And that's such an important point.
Yeah.
When we feel trapped, even when we are actually physically in prison.
Yeah.
Or in a metaphorical prison where we feel the walls are caving in around us, where we have no way out, where it feels like someone has us and is pressuring us, is even blackmailing us, is saying, I'm your only refuge, you have to do what I want. That's never true. It's never true.
Subhanallah. And Yusuf had experience with alayhi salam with this when he's in the well, so on, and then now being in this situation where the door had closed, he couldn't be free. And then when he went to prison.
And then an actual prison. Yes.
Actual prison, yeah.
And he was always free. That's the thing. He was free in he remained free in every single example of those, the physical dunya-based prisons that people put him in.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Imam Majid. Would you like to read the next ayah, number 25?
طيب. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. واستبق الباب وقدت قميصه من دبر والف يا سيدها لدى الباب قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم.
And they both ran to the door, and she ripped his shirt from behind, and they met her husband at the door. She said, what is the punishment of him who intends evil to your wife or to your family, except imprisonment or a painful torture? SubhanAllah. I can start just a few thoughts here. What it said to me, this ayah said to me, we actually have to run from temptation. What I mean by that is we can't rely on, quote, willpower or self-restraint for very long. That's a very, that's like that's a protection of last resort. What we actually have to do is get out of the situation where we're being tempted, and not just sort of sit there and be like, I'm going to control myself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
This is the prophet, and he's running.
Yeah,
he's not sitting around just like, oh, no, you know what? I'm just going to hang out and have this conversation for another hour. No, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very interesting, the word was tabaqalbab. This is musanna in Arabic. That both of them run to the door.
Yeah.
But you see, it's very interesting that both of them running toward the door for different reasons, though.
Right.
He ran to the door to get out. She ran to the door to prevent him from getting out.
Right.
In dunya, sometimes people, they can be running towards something, but each one of them running for different intention.
Right.
You're going to do the same thing with different intention. For they going toward the door, but his intention to get out, not to be in this situation, had intention to prevent him. That's why I said to people that sometimes we need to purify our intention. Why I'm running to?
Yeah.
Why am I escaping because I want to run away from a test, or I'm running away, go to the door because I wanted to shame somebody else, to say that this person not sincere in their action. I'm talking about activism sometimes. In that what our goal in life in going to the door,
right.
Or leaving the door. If you have to do it for the right reason, when you leave, when you get entered, you have to do it the right reason. They have, both of them went to the door with different intention in mind.
Yeah.
She wanted to prevent him from leaving, and he wanted to leave. By the way, some of the things that I discuss in domestic violence is that the most dangerous moment in a woman's life, because most of the domestic violence, then again, is women. When the woman decide to leave,
that's true.
That was her life become at risk. When he knows that she's exiting, that's where her life become in danger. She become aggressive when he decide to leave. Become physically aggressive. She, from seducing him, temptation, she become angry with him now.
Right.
In this case, it's Yusuf alayhi salam. For it seemed to me like her temptations or try to seduce him turned to make him an enemy, become an enemy. How dare you reject me?
Right.
I'm not going to accept that.
And that's exactly how it happens. It's like,
exactly.
First, it's the love bombing and the seduction and trying to get you to do what they want through love words and things like that. And then when you reject it, it's very quickly aggression.
Absolutely.
Very quickly anger.
Calling somebody names. You're not good for anything, and I'm going to destroy your reputation. I'm going to do this and that. That's what she become aggressive.
Become very aggressive.
Very aggressive, and become physically violent.
What's so interesting, this just came to me, is that her aggression and her transgression is also the proof that was used to show she was lying.
Yes.
And why I say that is because we're seeing this happen in the world, on a world stage, where when a group is so extreme in their aggression,
exactly,
they've transgressed every line, every law. It actually is the reason for showing how dishonest they are.
Yes.
When you transgress, that will end up being the reason for how you're exposed.
Exactly.
No matter how powerful you are.
Yes. When people use the I call them logical argument, they turn to violence. When they don't, the truth is not in their side. When it comes to logic and the debate and so forth, they lose the argument.
When they lose the moral argument, then they turn
absolutely.
to violence.
Yeah. And the word وقدت, there's a shadda on the dal. Like amazing things in the Quran. وقدت, like she pulled it, like emphasis. قميصه من دبر. Now in the second qamis, now in the second shirt. Now he's the first shirt when the brothers brought the false blood on it and claimed that the wolf have eaten him. Now in the second shirt, this dubur, that means she was so aggressive. She tore the shirt, and shows that at moment when people lose their rational and become violent, they become have this hijab, have this veil.
Yeah.
And they act in a way that is just unbelievable, and violating others. And then they have this confrontation that they have seen the man, by the way, in some of the tafsir, them qatfir,
what is qatfir?
His name.
Oh, his name is qatfir.
Yeah. بعدها the Mufassirin says, like Imam al-Nasafi said, name is qatfir.
Okay.
That he at the door, he about to enter. He has the key to the door. When she realized that he about to enter, now she has to justify. He's already a victim. She pulled his shirt. Now she crying wolf. She's saying,
she's claiming that she's the one that's being victimized.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Know, in Arabic there's a expression called ضربني واشتكى.
Yeah.
Okay, that he hit me and then he complained about me.
Right.
قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوء. What is the punishment for the person who wants to hurt your family?
Yeah.
And then she decide what kind of punishment you should have.
Right.
إلا أن يسجن. She shouldn't, because there's a passion moment that he could have killed him. She doesn't want him to kill him because she has something in her mind about him. She didn't give up with him. إلا أن يسجن, that don't kill him. I don't want you to أو عذاب أليم, or punish him severely. She made the verdict. How she want him to be punished? It's just unbelievable.
The prosecutor, the jury, and the judge.
Exactly. Yeah.
And his shirt is always, again, as you pointed out, the flag of truth.
Exactly.
The evidence of truth in every case.
Yeah.
And in both cases, with her and with his brothers, they're the ones crying, right? They come back and they're crying to their father.
Exactly.
And she's crying.
That's
he's
beautiful.
hurting me.
He wants to do this again.
The aggressors are always crying. They're always crying. They're always the victim.
Exactly. And they're lying and fabricating evidence.
Evidence.
The fabricated evidence, again, is the people that have been oppressing because they want to justify it.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting, and this comes later when the witness from her family, he sets out the conditions for where she would be the one lying and where she would be the one telling the truth. And it was interesting that in one case she's the aggressor, and in one case she's the one defending herself. And so it's always this idea of, the aggressor is claiming to be the one defending themselves.
Yeah.
This is like an archetype. It's a theme that we're picking up.
Exactly. And as some of Mufassirin had something very interesting in this ayah. They said that she uses also as a way to threaten Yusuf alayhi salam. Like, listen, this is going to happen to you. I can put you in prisons if you don't do what I want from you.
She's telling him, she's actually speaking to him more than anyone else.
Exactly.
Like, what should happen to this person who's threatening your family?
Yes.
Oh, how about these two things, right? And so she's trying to still persuade Yusuf. She's still working on. She hasn't given up yet.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the case of domestic violence from a woman against a man. Yeah. In this case,
in this case,
yeah.
And it's also important to understand. And I think Zulaikha is a very complicated character that I think is oversimplified. I'm always disappointed at how little depth she's given in terms of the complexity of her motivations, because there is an element of an element of love. It's not pure love. It's not selfless love. And it is, of course, tarnished with a great deal of lust. But there is an element of love for Yusuf because she doesn't want him dead.
Yeah, no.
And it's not just that she hasn't given up. She may have wondered, if this is ever going to work. But she, even when she finally loses all hope later, it's not that she wants him dead.
No.
That's not the case. So there's a complexity in her feelings towards him, and it shows when she redeems herself later in the story.
Absolutely.
So she's complex, just like his brothers are complex. It's very interesting. Oftentimes his brothers are given a lot more complexity of motivation, but she's just very she's portrayed in this very flat kind of caricature way of she's just this evil seductress. There's nothing else to say or think about. No, I think Zulaykha's very layered in her motivation and in how she sees the situation. But she's using every tool and weapon at her disposal as a woman, emphasis on woman, of privilege.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very interesting that you said that you should still have feeling with Yusuf, of course, but is a great point that you're making that she did not mention his name. She didn't say Yusuf. She said he did this to me. What the punish for a person?
A person, general, just like a
general.
Yeah.
She didn't mention Yusuf himself.
No, she didn't.
Yeah.
She didn't.
Yeah.
No, there's different. I think her character is actually something that would be interesting to explore. I think there's a book actually called Zulaykha and Yusuf or something where it's not like a orthodox tafsir, but it's more of an imagined story that goes into her character in a little bit more depth. But I don't think we can underestimate or flatten her into a caricature of just having one motivation. I don't think that would do it justice.
And here also the issue of privilege. What do you do with your privilege? She has the privilege of being important woman in Egypt. She has all this power, have this handsome slave under her control,
right.
And she thought that she controlled his soul. Physically, she can order him do this, but when it comes to his soul, he's a free man.
Yeah.
She cannot control the soul, and she misunderstood her power over him.
Yes.
And she thought that since he is the one who raised him, we fed him, we gave him clothes, then he will give in and compromise his principle. And that's something very important that in relationship, that how can you draw the line between a person being kind to you and he ordered you to do something not ethical? Because you can say, this person be very nice to me, have given me this, provided for me, and then that person ask you later to do something unethical,
right?
And then where do you draw the line? And that's what Fir'aun said to Musa. أَلَمْ نُرَبِّكَ فِينَا وَلِيدًا. We raised you. He said, أَتِلْكَ النِّعْمَةُ تَمُنُّهَا عَلَيَّ أَنْ عَبَّدْتَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Are you trying telling me that you have a favor upon me of enslaving my people? Therefore, is that how can we make sure that we're not being seduced with favors that make us compromise our principles? And because all of us sometimes in the proximity of power, I'm going to talk about myself and everybody. And then how can you make sure that no one give you a favor that compromise your principle?
Exactly. Now that's so important. Or that you compromise your principle because you don't want to lose access, or you don't want to lose favor with the powerful.
Exactly.
And these things are all incredible temptations.
Yes. Yeah, like Yusuf could have said, if I were to have a relationship with this woman, then I would have controlled her because I would be able to expose her You could have blackmailed her, that you could have blackmailed this woman, but Yusuf alayhi salam said, I'm not going to compromise my principle. She has had the power. She can do more things for me. If I become her favorite, I have become my mistress. If we become like that, we would have shifted the power itself. Yeah. But Yusuf alayhi salam said, no, I'm going to use my spiritual power. I'm going to continue to control myself. I'm going to tell her that she does not own my soul. She does not own my spirit. She might confine me physically in that space, but not my soul.
Yes. And you are never truly enslaved if you only belong to Allah.
Yeah, that's true. That's why they say
no one has power over you if you only surrender to Allah.
Absolutely. In al-ubudiyya kamal al-hurriya, in submission to Allah is absolute freedom. Yeah.
In al-ubudiyya kamal al-hurriya. What a beautiful statement. Yeah. Surrender to Allah is the complete freedom. So I'll read the next ayah here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال هي راودتني عن نفسي وشهد شاهد من أهلها إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين وإن كان قميصه قد من دبر فكذبت وهو من الصادقين. So I just combined the two ayahs.
Good. Excellent.
One meaning. So I'll read the translation. He said, she's the one that sought to make me yield to her. And a witness of her own family bore witness and said, if his shirt is ripped from the front, she speaks the truth and he is one of the liars. And if his shirt is ripped from behind, she tells a lie and he is one of the truthful.
It's very interesting, because Yusuf alayhi salam has such amazing personality. If she didn't say anything and Yusuf alayhi salam just walked out of the door and she walked out of the door, Yusuf alayhi salam would not have exposed her. He would not have said, she did this to me and this and that. Yusuf alayhi salam only defended himself when she accused him. قال هي راودتني عن نفسي. Because now she accused him.
Yes,
imagine if she didn't accuse him, because he's a servant. You could have been cleaning the room, doing anything. He's a servant. He's not a stranger. Or in the mind of her husband, he is a son, like his son. Therefore, he will not have crossed the mind of the man.
It's like, because why did she even bring it up? Like,
she was panicking. She was panicking.
Her guilt and her panic.
Panicking and guilt, because her emotion was so high. And then when the door opened, it was showing her face. She have to say something. Therefore, Yusuf alayhi salam found himself being accused. قال هي راودتني عن نفسي. She's the one that have done that to me. Now, it's very interesting. They said that the Al-Aziz, her husband, he has a cousin with him. Was not coming by himself. Mm-hmm. Because you see, can you imagine a house has many doors? There's a bedroom, maybe there's a hall. He's coming from the place where a guest can come and sit. So she closed all the doors. Like she really, that's what we say, قلقت الأبواب. It's not one door. Doors.
Yeah.
But he's coming from that door and bringing a guest with him. And then he might imagine finding his wife like saying something like this. For me, I'm just what reading between the line. I think the husband was speechless. Well, you couldn't say anything. That's why somebody else said something. Like he looking at Yusuf like, I don't believe this, you know. And وشهد شاهد من أهلها. Then the shahid has to speak, because the husband did not say anything. The shahid شاهد من أهلها, but from the word أهلها is very interesting. A witness from her side. وشهد شاهد من أهلها. It was because Yusuf alayhi salam doesn't have family. He's alone. Therefore, there's no possible anyone would be there for him. Everybody would be her relatives or the relative of her husband. But subhanAllah, they said this man is her relative. The man who happened to come with her husband is actually her cousin, not the cousin of her husband.
Yeah.
Like, what a moment.
Yeah.
Then he said, okay, we'll let her figure it out. Who did what? وشاهد شاهد من أهل. This, by the way, this always being used as an example. If, like, say, we have forces committing aggression now, as we speak.
Yeah.
And one of the people from the forces of committing aggression says, we have done wrong, this is not true, and so forth. And somebody who says, now a witness from them,
right,
not from us. وشهد شاهد من أهلها. It become a مثل.
Yeah,
purpose.
Exactly. It's used all the time. وشهد شاهد من أهلها. When it's someone from the other side, or someone from the media of the other side, or admitting to what the wrong that's being done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to point out something just before we even jump into, before I talk about the member of her household, is just the fact that Yusuf did defend himself.
Yes.
Because this is a key point, because there are people who argue that silence in the face of false accusation is the best and most pious, approach. And that, you just allow Allah to show your innocence without you doing anything. Just be silent. It's like, no. No. You need to speak.
Fight back. Yeah.
Fight back. Yeah. Set the record straight. This is actually the most pious thing to do.
Absolutely.
So we need to speak up and say the truth if accused. I think that's actually an important point.
Yes.
The second thing I wanted to point out is that, as you said, a member of her household will naturally, if anything, be biased toward her, right? Mm-hmm. They'll incline toward her. So why emphasize this point and mention it is because if he rules in favor of Yusuf, nobody can question it.
That's true.
The credibility is solid.
That's true.
And so we know that when he goes to prison, her husband knew he was innocent. Her family knew he was innocent. They knew, without a shadow of a doubt. There wasn't a he said, she said. This was for sure putting an innocent man in prison. And so this has to be emphasized.
Yes.
That was the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because one of the things that I think is very interesting, because I do two things. I really reflect on the Quran, but I also reflect on how the Quran is interpreted by our community and by the scholarly class. One of the things I thought was very interesting is that when the reaction of her husband comes, which will come later in a minute here, and he says to her, kind of like, apologize for your mistake. Mm-hmm. And kind of just leaves it at that and goes on. They are so critical of him, of her husband, for being like so soft on her. Mm-hmm. And he's just ridiculed, and he's not a man, and he's so weak, but his actual sin is not that he didn't punish her more severely, is he put an innocent man in prison.
Yes.
Knowingly. That's what you should be criticizing.
Yes.
Him for. They're like, I mean, that's so interesting to me. Like, what is the problem with her husband is like, oh, he's so soft on her, and that's it. And
yeah. It is him committing aggression against a man that he also thought he's like his son.
Yeah.
He adopted him like a son. You know, one of the things that you read in the tajweed here, وشهد شاهد من أهلها من أهلها.
Yeah.
من أهلها. أهلها is mad. أهلها, from her family. Like emphasis, like this shahid is not like any other witness. He's a witness from her family. The emphasis.
He's not even neutral.
Yeah.
He's not even neutral.
Yeah.
He's on her side already from the beginning, which is why he starts when he's saying if the shirt is ripped from the front, she's honest. So he starts with that as the assumption.
Exactly.
That's the default.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And the other thing I want to ask you about, because I think this is very interesting, is that he doesn't describe them in equal ways. I mean, the English is hard to catch with that, but in the Arabic, it's إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين. So if the shirt is ripped from the front, then she was telling the truth, like a singular action, and he is from among the liars. That's his identity. That's where he's from. That's the group he belongs to.
Yeah.
Whereas it's just her committing an act in the moment. And then in the second ayah, it says the same thing, right? فكذبت, just not من الكاذبين. كذبت. One time.
Yes.
Just one little mistake. وهو من الصادقين, and he's from among the truth tellers. And I was really thinking, why is it structured that way?
Yeah.
Where she is only being, her actions are not defining her, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah,
it's just an action that she's only doing once, and the other, in his case, his actions define him. And I thought about how when you're a minority, when you're the weaker party, so like when in in our society, when someone from the dominant culture does something, they're one person doing one thing wrong that doesn't define anything about, actually, let's talk about their childhood and how they were so, mentally ill and all these problems. And so we allow them the idea that this is just one wrong thing they did that doesn't define them.
Yeah.
But if it's a member of a marginalized community, a person of color, or a Muslim, obviously, of course, a Muslim, then that action defines them and their whole community.
Exactly. You're right. Exactly.
And subhanAllah, that's exactly what the structure is with this judge is.
Yeah.
No, you're not being judged equal. And actually, the only one on trial is Yusuf. She's not on trial.
Yeah, no, she's not. They want to determine whether he's truthful or not.
Yes.
Yusuf alayhi salam, not her. But it's something very interesting that you just said it eloquently, that some of us have alluded to, is that إن كان قميص قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين. You could have said also وإن كان قميص قد من دبر فكذبت فصدقت فصدق وهي من الكاذبين. You could have said فصدق. يعني the next ayah you could have said وإن كان قميص قد من دبر فصدق. He spoke the truth. وهي من الكاذبين.
Right.
But as you said, as eloquently said, he doesn't want to have her to be among al-kadhibin. But he used the word kadhabat only. One of the things that beauty in the Quran, all the Quran is beautiful. When it's quoting somebody, when Allah quotes someone, it tells you the state of mind of this person, how this person think, what happened to them, as they were saying what they were saying. This man found himself in a very difficult situation. He is with the husband. He is a cousin. He's a relative.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that being accused is considered slave, lower class.
Yeah.
And therefore have to walk a very fine line himself in maintaining his relationship with his cousin, he calculating this. He tried to start a process, but he cannot be fair because the system is not fair to begin with. The system is not fair. Therefore, he works in very fine line to make sure that is not being perceived like he come to the defense of the slave, or he makes the slave equal. Something very interesting. They said Imam Ali, Karamallah Wajhu, he had a dispute with a man who's not Muslims, who claimed that the shield, he has a shield, the man claimed this is his. And Imam Ali anhu, Karamallah Wajhu, said, this is mine. But at that time, Imam Ali was Amir al-Mu'mineen. Therefore, he took the guy to his own judge. He appointed the judge, and they said, well, let's go to the judge. The judge said to Imam Ali, do you have any evidence? This is yours. Do you have any witnesses? This is yours. He said, only my two sons, Hassan and Hussein. He said, then I'm sorry, I cannot accept the conflict of interest. I cannot accept the testimony. Then this guy, he said to the guy, would you swear by God this is yours? He said, yeah. He said, okay, it's yours. Take it. And the guy who was shocked, he said, I stood in the court of law with the leader of the Mu'mineen. He said, I lied. The shield does not belong to me. Belong to him. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Become Muslim. And you think it's over. About to leave, the judge called back Imam Ali. He said, come back to court. He said, I realized that you frowned in the court. Were you upset that you're standing against someone, defending yourself? You should not frown. Why you look so upset? Like frown on my face. When I said, why you frowned on my face when I called your name? He said, you tried to intimidate me. Like I'm a judge. When I call your name, you frown in my face. And there's a power dynamic there. You are Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why do you frown in my face? Like in contempt. Like Imam Ali said, I did not frown because I was upset that you called my name. I was upset because you were not fair to him. He said, how I was not fair to him? He said, you called him with his first name and you called him with my nickname, the name that I like. You called me Abul Hassan and you called him his first name. That is, you are not being equal. For when I saw you calling him and then you called me,
Allahu Akbar.
You call us not an equal. That's why I was shocked that you called me with my nickname. You should have called me, said Ali. That's my name. And the Qadi Sharif said, Alhamdulillah, that I thank Allah that I'm served under you. I'm a judge under you. Yeah. So this is this guy now.
Subhanallah. Wallahi, tears and goosebumps. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even the fact that he wanted to be called Ali and not Amir al-Mu'mineen,
Yes.
Mr. President, not.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was like, Joe Biden, Joe, that's what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amir al-Mu'mineen, that's his title.
Yes.
That's his title. But he's a plaintiff now in a court of law, so he has to be treated.
Yes. He said you called me with a nickname that shows that you were not equal.
Subhanallah.
You didn't make us equal. Yeah.
That's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
I think what you said about quoting in the Quran. First, I just wanted to say that it's very remarkable to me how accurately that the Quran just quotes people as they've spoken, including
Yeah.
shaitan. No
Yes.
one is silenced.
Yes, exactly.
They're all just, this is what they said. So you hear their argument. It's not like, oh, this is a bad person, I'm not going to reproduce their propaganda. No, actually, shaitan is quoted.
Yes, exactly. And I know that you pray with that. You pray with the quoting of shaitan.
Yeah, the quote of shaitan, and it's accurate. And this is what he says, and he's making his best case.
Yeah.
No one is silencing him. No one is saying, oh, we can't hear what he says. It's the only people who silenced someone were the kuffar of Mecca, the Quraysh, who said, no, we can't hear this Quran. It's not something anyone can hear.
Yeah.
That's the only example of actually silencing.
Exactly.
Someone.
And all people who like to silence others, they don't have a power, of evidence. They don't have
They've lost the logical argument.
Exactly.
So they silence, and
therefore
they're aggressive.
Exactly. They wanted to silence TikTok. They want to silence Instagram if it doesn't go their way.
Absolutely.
But when it goes their way, then freedom of speech and so forth. But when turn against them, they want to silence.
Yeah. Amplify what they want only.
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with just this thought is back to the ayah and how Yusuf is described and how the actions of Zulaikha is described, that her actions are a verb, right? They're an action. They're sadaqat, kadabat. And him, he is given a noun, right? Min al kadibin. Okay, and what's the difference? Is a verb in Arabic is time-bound and changing.
Mm-hmm.
And a noun in Arabic is timeless and an identity.
That's true.
So what he was saying is this moment is defining Yusuf.
Yes.
Whereas it's not defining Zulaikha.
Exactly.
She's not defined by one action. She's a complex human being. She's a woman of privilege. But when you're powerless, your actions, one thing can define you for the rest, for your whole life.
Yeah.
And I think that this concept of how one instance can define one person and be forgiven for another is so important, because I've seen it over and over where people of power can commit the worst actions and the worst scandals, and it's like nothing happened. We all just completely get over it in like 3 weeks, and we forget that it even happened.
Yeah.
But someone without power, one mistake and it's over for them.
Yeah. Sometimes the entire community been painted as such.
And then their entire group too is demonized.
Exactly. Now, this is wonderful. This is a good way to end it.
Yeah, a good way to end for today. And we will be with all of you, inshallah, in 1 week. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share this episode with others who may be interested in the meaning of the Quran. Also, we love hearing from our listeners. Tell us your reflections at Quran.conversations, our Instagram page. We read every single one. Finally, we hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. This week's reflection prompt is, in the story of Yusuf, the prophet's shirt is again and again the evidence of truth, where a member of the wife's own family attests to Yusuf's innocence because his garment is ripped from the back. How can we adorn ourselves with the garment of truth in our lives so that even our enemies, if fair, must attest to our righteousness? Until next week, salam.